According to your estimation, there are about 200 U.S. citizens wrongfully detained in China. Could you summarize the situation for us?
What we talk about in the trade, as it were, are coercive measures. Coercive measures is a term that applies to many types of situations. You have administrative detention, residential surveillance, which there are two types. You have arrest, you have pretrial detention, you have trial, detention during the trial, then you have imprisonment. So all of these are called coercive measures. Now, we guesstimate, and I want to stress this is a guesstimate. We do not know. The US government does not release that number. Other governments do release the numbers, in particular Canada, that more than 100 Canadians are under detention. They are 1/10 the size of the United States. It absolutely has to be at least 200. Why Americans are being detained in China? Well, there are many reasons. We have this gentleman, John Leung, just sentenced by a court in Suzhou. And then we have the American Kylie, who's also been in prison now for quite a few years. On the other end, in terms of seriousness, is an American who has been sentenced to death for murder. All right. If he is executed, I don't know, I've asked, no response. If in fact he is executed, it would be the first time in Chinese history, People's Republic of China, that we know of, in which an American has been executed. Mark Sweden, which is a case I've been working on for more than 8 years, Mr. Sweden had his sentence of death with 2-year reprieve. I think it's a terribly unjust judgment. And as you point out, leading officials, including the State Department, including Senator Cruz, and other people. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Mel Gibson has called for Mark's release.
In Mark Sweden's case, Senator Ted Cruz from Texas urged the Biden administration to use all the tools to secure his release. What kind of tools does the administration have?
Well, right now, the relationship with China is terrible. I've been involved with U.S.-China relations for more than 50 years. I've never seen anything like this. It seems every day we have a new problem. In the case of Mark Sweden, we can't even get a hold of the judgment in the second trial. The Chinese have thus far refused to release the judgment. So one thing the U.S. government can do is to insist judgment be provided to the family, and it would be very nice if they provided to the U.S. government, the consulate. Other thing, of course, is raise his name at every opportunity. I can't stress how important that is. I understand President Biden raised names when he met with, he raised Americans in general. He didn't specifically refer to them by name. And you must do that. One of the things I was very involved with the Mark Sweden case was going to Geneva and getting the working group on arbitrary detention to issue an opinion that Mark Sweden has been arbitrarily detained. He should be immediately released and compensation paid. Unfortunately, China has totally ignored that. They've ignored others as well, including Mr. Kylie. It should bring it up with the Chinese ambassador. I don't know the new ambassador, if the administration has had an opportunity to raise Marx and others with the new ambassador. That should be done. Those are just a few suggestions.
Seeing Li Kai and Pastor David Lin's case, is there an apparent increase after Xi Jinping came into power in 2012?
Yes, there has been an increase. The Chinese judicial authorities are more inclined to detain, convict Americans than they were before. That's my impression. But again, we don't have the numbers, so how can you say? I mean, I think there's been an increase. And not only an increase, the length of the sentences.
What's your suggestions for U.S. citizens traveling in China? Does Chinese American need to be more cautious since they may still be seen as Chinese for the government?
Well, one thing is, if you're going to China, I don't know how long it takes to get marijuana out of your system, but do not smoke marijuana. I think it's 6 months. And if you can, please do that. Don't do that. And always, rule number 1, always travel on your U.S. passport. Let's say you have Hong Kong documents. In Cantonese, it's called a Wuhengji. If you have one of those and you have a U.S. passport, do not use the Hong Kong travel document. You must use the U.S. passport. That is absolutely vital, because unless you use your passport and you travel on your Hong Kong document, you will be treated as a Chinese citizen, which means no consular access, no presence at trial, nothing. So that's a very important piece of advice.
What about Chinese citizens deemed by Beijing as wrongly detained in the U.S.?
Certainly, there are Chinese citizens who have been detained in this country, and quite a few actually, including some who have been accused of spying. And one would think, following the example of Ms. Greiner, that you could arrange some kind of a prisoner swap with China, but I don't see that happening.